Well, hello again, my friends, and welcome back to another exciting episode of 15 Minute Free Thinking with me, your host, Carpo. And I hope everyone's doing well. And what I have on the plate today is a little discussion about you. Not you as an individual, but you as a human being and the choices you have. It already sounds like some cheesy motivational speech. You see, there's a fine line I walk when I talk about improving your own life and seeing the world for what it is, because I have my own realizations that I have a limited scope of what reality is. My experience in life is different than yours. From the most complicated mental issues that we have that are totally different from one another, to our disposition to like certain things, as well as a carpenter, I might look at structures when I'm driving along on the road. As a forester, a person might be looking at specific log cuttings. As a urban waterways expert, a person is looking at confluences and how rivers merge into each other. Everyone sees only what they need to see, because their brain, all of our brains, are very limited on scope. If we tried to pick up everything we see around us, it would be chaos. Our brains couldn't process it. Reality is about focusing on one point at any given time. And that about sums that up. I'm not sure how else to put it. But because of this important fact is that everybody wants to get that attention. Everybody wants to pull your gaze toward their product or their service. And since humans have had civilization, we have continually tried to sell our wares, our services, our ideas to other people. And therefore, people have spent a lot of time researching and developing things, as well as thinking and doing math and, developing languages and systems in order to sell that to a larger population to improve society, but also to make a little money in the process. And all through history, this was the case until a couple hundred years ago. And with the advent of the steam engine, after we were able to start, basically the Industrial Revolution set us on a long, straight path to advancement in technology to where we are today. Now, there is so much shit on the market today. They're not just selling you a toothpaste or a specific type of, wash detergent, like a soap opera. Literally, soap operas were created to sell soap. They were little shows with soap commercial during the break. They were sponsored by these soaps. There wasn't a lot out there, but that has completely changed, and now everyone wants to get you to buy everything. And this isn't really the main discussion here, but it's about how we buy into anything that's popular because we don't want to miss out on some new technology, some new idea. I was going to do a whole podcast about cryptocurrency and the crash that I did make one about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I talked about how I think that it's really a lot of potential in blockchain technology for technical needs, but not for a currency, and it's not working. And now people have lost their life savings, and nobody's really talking as much about it. And what I got from that was, all the language is big talk when something's good, but when it doesn't work out, everyone just quiets down. You don't hear much about it anymore. Now, I'm not saying crypto won't go back up. I'm just saying there are things that really don't have value. And cryptocurrency, all these different coins, they didn't have any inherent value. They were worthless. The same way, in my opinion, that a Coach bag is worthless, or any fancy Gucci or Louis Vuitton crap that a person is willing to spend thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on a garment or a pair of shoes or a handbag. Sure, there are people who collect these. I'm a record collector. Obviously, I understand that things do gain value. And just like I get satisfaction from playing the records and collecting them, people get satisfaction from collecting handbags and shoes. But there's a different segment of society who only buys these items because they really want to appear as if they can afford them, to where we really believe that our image depends on how we come across financially. Now, I've spent most of my life working normal, if you will, normal jobs. I've worked for myself twice, as an independent contractor once and carpenter, and also as, selling various herbs online after that. Now I'm back to carpentry. The point being that I've always kind of lived check to check like everyone else and tried to save what I can. And I've never really had any interest in getting ahead or beating the Joneses, right? Keeping up with the Joneses. The idea that you need to have what your neighbors have, or you need to have a bigger or better car than your friends. It's ludicrous to me that people will stand outside and wait for an iPhone for 2 days and camp out so they can get the latest phone when they have literally one in their hand that was just released a year ago. I consider that to be a dumb person. Not a completely idiot. Obviously a person can be a fucking professor and still do that, but it's buying into the marketing that is so pervasive and has honed itself that we really need to just stop worrying about what's the latest or the greatest or the coolest and really ask ourselves what we like. And I don't feel like people do that. And I know that comes across as arrogant. Maybe I grew up in a time when I was kind of forced to develop my own sense of self, understanding about self. I guess the lesson I want to share here is don't trust people who promise you happiness or stuff. There's always a motive, an ulterior motive that we just can't see. Whether it be to make themselves look better, whatever it might be, but there are some scummy people out there. And I'm not discounting the fact that a lot of people are kind and do great things for other people. But they're not the ones who are out bragging about it. They're not the ones who want you to see what they're doing. It's the same thing kind of what they're doing with companies with greenwashing, which is the practice of pretending like, oh, hey, we use recycled materials in our, $50,000 shoes. Give me a fucking break. I mean, there's a complete disconnect from reality and the marketing techniques that have always been used. But here's really the point. People believe it. That's what still amazes me. When I was younger, I said, well, folks are starting to see through this. But now I realize that it never went away. And it seems even worse than it was before. It seems that people are becoming even more superficial than they were when I was young. And perhaps I was wrong. But if you watch old advertisements, just look at how they treat people. Look at how dumb they talk to the public. But then look at modern ads and look at how dumb they still treat the public. And that's kind of what inspired me to make this video. Like, why do ads think people are that dumb? Are we? I still don't know. I guess if people are willing to buy the products and really believe it makes them healthier or cooler, that doesn't make them dumb. It just makes them want to trust other people. And that's the sad part about this. That we want to trust companies have done their research. We want to trust individuals know what they're talking about. And that our gurus or experts are, top of their field. But the fact is, we find out that a lot of the times they're not. So you got to kind of trust your intuition a lot of the time. And what I've found is look at what we need, not what we want. I have a lot of stuff, walking sticks I'm working on, and books and stereos and records and, old stereo equipment. I don't know what to do with it all, but I have a passion for these things, these collections, right? But none of them really for the brand names necessarily, but for the quality. Kind of like with records. Like a lot of records I just like because it sounds good. But I have some that are valuable too. But I've always found it funny how people think that money or how much something is worth really determines its value, as opposed to your interest in it and how much you gain from that thing. You see this in the music world a lot with like musicians and guitars. Like, oh man, it's a $50,000 guitar. So what? How's it play? I don't know. It's not that great. It's like, then who cares? The value of something doesn't matter. It's the tool and the utility of it. Just like, a lot of people do buy handbags, then they collect them and never put anything in them because you wouldn't want to dare damage something. It's kind of a weird thing, but to each their own. But it's not to me about whether rich people spend money on rich people things. It's the fact that people who aren't rich think that that will make them feel like they're rich or be treated better. And I would just say be wary of your company. Spend some time with people that you revere and respect and see how they really treat you if they know who you really are. To me, it's always been about knowing other humans. The thing I've found, and it sounds kind of nihilistic, but a lot of people who are willing to sell you bad products or tainted products or products they know might be dangerous. Just look at the pharmaceutical industry. They've been doing it for decades. They don't care if you fail or die or get scammed, get ripped off, or your body falls apart. They don't care. There's a cost assessment for the insurance of any large company, and they have willfully hidden the dangers of certain products from people because it would cost them too much to pull the product. People just accept this as normal and assume, well, all people are scum. But most people aren't scum. It's just the people at the very top who make the most money make some decisions that end up costing a lot of people their lives. And that's another story altogether, but it does fall in line with that. That's why people are suspicious about one another, and you should be. You should be suspicious about anyone's intentions who tells you that they have your best interest at heart, because it's just not true. I remember seeing a commercial where Fred Flintstone was smoking cigarettes. I believe Chesterfields, if I'm not mistaken. And looking at some of the old PSAs that came in later, they were nothing compared to the smoking ads and the discussions they would have about how, doctors want you to smoke. Right. Okay. This is what people were actually fed on national television and believed it. And there were something like 70% of people smoked, in the 70s. That all changed. And now today you hardly see anyone smoking out there. The smoking companies tobacco companies took 8% of all the ads, all the airtime nationwide because they were making so much money. And it was like creating an idea, because before that no one smoked. And then it just became this thing where everyone smoked. And I think that's a perfect metaphor for the toxicity of what people are buying into on the internet today. And it's not just the items, it's not just the materials or the things or the purses. It's the extremism. It's the idea that the other side of the society is wrong and that you're right and that everyone agrees with you and A or B needs to be abolished. Instead of trying to understand the world, we have a very simplistic answer. Annihilate the enemy seems to be kind of the way a lot of people think. And yeah, I just wanted to ramble about that for a minute. And that's my podcast for today. I guess my point here is to be yourself. Don't trust other people to have your best interest at heart. Don't wear clothes to impress people. Don't buy certain brand names to impress people. But also, even more importantly, don't go out and commit heinous crimes to impress people. Don't just join the military to prove that you're cool or that you're tough. Do things for the right reasons. You have to feel in your heart when something's right. In order to feel properly, you have to learn. You have to educate yourself. You have to think. You have to have time to sit with your thoughts patiently and see what comes to fruition. And maybe that's the problem today. People just don't sit with their thoughts anymore. They don't spend the time to sit down and just think. I used to listen to my stereo in my car all the time. Nowadays, I just think. Right now, I'm sitting in my back office. Sometimes I'll just come back here and sit and think for an hour. I have a lot of thoughts to process, and knowing how distracting the internet is, knowing how easy it is to just listen to a podcast or a music or, watch a video, I have to kind of laugh at myself sometimes and say, just sit in a quiet room with your thoughts. And that gets harder and harder as time goes on. But ultimately, it leads us to discover more about ourselves and kind of realize what's really important. At any rate, those are my thoughts for the day. Thanks for coming along. The video version of this will be available for my patrons. The audio version will be available for free for everyone else. If you'd like to become a patron and get access to all that good stuff, visit me on Patreon at Carpo719. I will talk to you all next time, and have a wonderful day. Peace.